Hey everyone, so this isn't a video that I would normally make, but I wanted to give my 2 cents on how Nintendo basically just cooked the entire games industry. So yeah, let's go through that, shall we? Now, I'm not a Nintendo fan, or I guess you would say an established Nintendo fan. What I mean by this is I didn't grow up with Nintendo consoles or games in the house. I don't love or hate Nintendo or their products. In fact, I enjoy a few of their party games like Mario Kart and Mario Party because I play those with my friends sometimes when I head over to their houses or we hang out or, anything like that. However, I do eventually want to get into Nintendo games because I've never really played through any of their main titles, like the mainline Mario titles or the Legend of Zelda titles. I've never really played through them, so I wanted to. And, I saw the opportunity with the Switch 2, being that would be my in. That would be my, hey, this is how I could get into it. Because I was already really late when it came to the Switch 1. By the time I had, the availability to, or the ability to get one myself, it was already well into its lifespan, and I knew deep down if I were to get one now, they're just going to announce the Switch 2. And I'm glad I waited because, yeah, they announced the Switch 2. However, after this direct, I'm not exactly super excited about waiting, and we'll get into that as we go in further. And speaking of which, let's move on to point 1, shall we? I'm going to talk about how my peak hype for the Switch 2 turned into diving off a cliff into a vat of lava all in the span of 15 minutes. Now, normally, and shout out to Jeff Keighley here on his Twitter for giving the information early on, it launches June 5th, which I thought, hey, that's freaking sweet, man. Like that's coming soon. I can save up for some, get me one. And then the pricing hit, and it was around $449, so 450 USD for a Switch. And I was like, God, that's a little expensive. The first Switch was $300, and then the OLED was $350. And I was like, that's a little expensive, but it has a lot of features, which if you watch the direct yourself, which I implore you to go do, because, I'm just sitting here ranting about this thing. It started off, it was, had a lot of features and stuff. I'm like, okay, things are getting a little more expensive, so that makes sense, that they would price it then. And Nintendo's always been known, ever since the first Switch, to be a cheaper accessibility to video games. I mean, the Switch, when it debuted, was $300, still is $300, and, aside from the games, the main games that they produce never going on sale, it's quite cheap entry to get into video games. However, not anymore, because if you go further down, you'll see that the digital games you purchase are now $80. That is insane. To put it lightly. Games just raised recently to $70, and that was already too much in my opinion, especially for the quality of games we're getting. Now I know this is Nintendo. Nintendo usually, especially their first party games, tend to be of really good quality. But $80 for a digital product that I don't even own, that I just am buying a license to, and again, we're going to get into the whole ownership thing later, is absurd. That's honestly stupid. I don't know why anyone would actually be okay with spending that money. Well, I know there's some diehard Nintendo fans that would, but again, we'll get into that later. Yeah, no, I genuinely don't know, how the game pricing can be the way it is. And speaking of which, again, the console itself, $450, that's a little too much. It's decent, but it's a little too much. If you notice here, $500 for Mario Kart edition. So there's a bundle that they're doing where it's, Mario Kart World recently announced being paired with it, with which the pricing you see is $500. And I was like, okay, so you're just getting the game. It must be, you're getting $10 off the game. Well, no, that's not the case, because if you go here, this is the MSRP for Mario Kart World. This is the MSRP, $80 for this video game. That is a $10 increase from the $70, which everyone was already not okay with. And the games are usually $60, so this is a $20 increase. But you know what's funny? Which I find really funny? That's not the physical edition for the game, because the physical edition costs $90. $90 for the physical edition. And the digital, which you don't even get to own, is $80. Now this comes from right here, this picture right here. And also shout out to Jeff Keighley. This information was on the Nintendo.com site itself, and this one is from Insider Gaming Network, their article on it. As you can see right here, Mario Kart World, the physical edition is $90. Now, some people are saying this is in some regions, but I'm gonna be real with you. I don't think that's the case. I think they're going to charge this everywhere. Eventually, just because it makes sense for the business practice standpoint. Finally, we're getting a price variation between digital and physical. However, the problem is the price hiked $20 just for the digital version. You explain to me why this game. Now, I think Mario Kart World is, just from what we've seen, is going to be a really good game. But you explain to me how it's worth $80, and then explain to me how it's worth $90. Explain to me how I'm going to get $90 worth of content out of this for a game when I was paying $60 for, for other games. My friends paid $60 for Mario Kart, 8. Explain that to me. Because that doesn't make any sense to me how you could hike it that much. The problem I have with this mostly, right, is this is going to affect stuff later down the line. And I'll get into that later in this video. But for now, what I really want to talk about is this differentiation between digital and physical. Because gamers have been talking about it for a long time, but we are looking at the death of physical ownership, actual ownership for our games. Genuinely, we are looking at the death of it. And this is the start. If they're giving different prices for digital to physical, they're trying to price out the physical games. They're trying to make it to where it's not worth getting physical copies. And for people who are younger, who didn't really grow up in like the 360 era and all that kind of stuff, and you're just now kind of getting the games with the Switch and the PS4, the PS5, all that kind of stuff. Back then, that's what I would say where it started to really kick off the digital game thing, because you had the Xbox Arcade, you had the PlayStation Arcade, that was digital games you downloaded, and I'm sure it was done a little bit before that too. I know technically Steam's been up for a long time on PC, so it's kind of always been there. But I'm gonna take it back to a little bit. It sounds like it's gonna come out of nowhere, but it's kind of political, but it has to do with this because corporations tend to follow political things that get enacted. At the World Economic Forum, there was a slogan, and you can look this up online, that was given out during one of the videos, and it was talking about the corporations talking to their consumers, and said, "You will own nothing and you will be happy." Well, gamers, here it is. That's it right there. They're pricing out physical games, so we cannot have physical games to own and trade to each other. So we can only buy from the copies, which, as we've seen with certain games, like The Crew, will be stripped from us, and we can't even have the game anymore after we bought the game, which is actually technically a game license. And this gets even more insane when you consider this right here. Nintendo Switch 2 Game Key Card Overview. This says that game key cards are different from regular game cards because they don't contain the full game data. Instead, the game key card is your key to downloading the full game to your system via the internet. After it's downloaded, you can play the game by inserting the game key card into your system and starting it up like a standard physical game. So basically, you don't even own the game data on the cartridge that you buy physical anymore when you buy the $90 edition. Now again, this is on some games, but this is going to take, I can go ahead and make a prediction now, this is going to start being a trend in the gaming industry, that they're going to do this. Because game developers like giving you a license. They don't, the bigger ones. Now, I don't know about the smaller ones, but they like that. Because it costs them less. It costs them a lot less money in production to have to put data on an actual physical either cartridge or disc and send it out. They like making digital games. And as we've seen, they're not going to change the prices to something more reasonable for digital because they have to put less manufacturing cost into it. No, they're going to charge actually more and then charge you more for the physical copy, as we see Nintendo doing here. So basically, when you buy of some Switch 2 games, when you buy the actual game cartridge, it's not. It's a game key, and you have to download the game onto your Switch. So that, to me, is, as far as we know, this could change, information come out more, but this is as far as we know. So you don't even own the game when you buy the cartridge anymore. So that, paired with this, you can see how it leaves a bad taste, not only in my mouth, but in a lot of gamers' mouths too. This is very bad, because this leaves a trail for the rest of the game industry to follow. Because if Nintendo is able to succeed with this, and it's Nintendo, you have a lot of people who are just going to buy Nintendo products because it's Nintendo. Then they're going to see that works, that's successful, and then they're going to do it. So every other game company is going to start trying to do this. So the rumors, in my opinion, of GTA 6 being $100 is basically more than confirmed at this point if they're doing this. If they're doing this, then that means GTA 6 will probably be $100 on launch. And I don't know if I'm just being negative, but I don't have high hopes for that because Rockstar has not had a good track record recently with their remasters, their releases, whatever. And I don't have high hopes. And that's going to become the base price for a lot of games, is $80, $90 to $100. That's the price range we're looking at. And when you actually stack this up, let's go back. Let's say you buy the Mario Kart edition, because that's the best way. Instead of paying $80 to $90, well, it would be $80 because it's a digital copy. Instead of paying $80, you're paying $50 to get the bundle. So let's say you get the cheapest option. That's $500. Let's say you want to buy, let's go here, yeah, to Donkey Kong Bonanza. And you want to buy that. You're at minimum paying $580, you get your 2 games, and if you want the camera, you're paying another $50. If you want another controller, you're paying $80. By the time you get out of there, with tax, you're spending around almost $800 just for this console and the starter stuff. the starter games and all that to get. And yes, those things are quote unquote optional, but are you really going to buy a console with one game on it and play it the whole time and never get another one? No, you're going to want more games to play your new console on. You know, it's good for people who already own games because they could just transfer games they already have on their Switch over to here. But the problem is that for someone like me who wants to get into Nintendo games, this is a terrible onboarding offer. Like, this is awful. Like, this does not make me want to buy a Switch 2. This makes me want to find another route of playing Nintendo games. And I'm not going to actually say the word for it, but this right here, I can see, let me think of a word to use for it. I can see video game one-piecing. I'm going to use that. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go watch One Piece for 2 minutes. I can see video game one-piecing spiking if video games and game companies start pulling and following this trend. If video game companies start following this trend, I can see video game one-piecing spiking for sure. I mean, who's gonna be okay with this for most of their games? I mean, like for me, I can't afford a lot of this stuff. I live in a lower middle class income household. Pretty much. Gaming's getting too expensive, especially when you rack up all the extra stuff that's in microtransactions, which, you know, some of these games don't have, but still, that's where games are starting to expand pricing, and then you're adding these price hikes on the games themselves for purchase. It just starts adding up to where it's not feasible anymore. I'm gonna have to basically either buy 1 or 2 games a year, or just basically buy indie games that are cheaper, because I get more out of indie games than I do most AAA games for now, and it'd be cheaper in the long run. But then I want to move to my third point. And this got me riled up for a different reason. Now, this may not upset anybody else but me. I don't know. But I find this to be absolutely absurd right here. Nintendo, and this is to Andy Robinson, by the way. Also, I want to say that the Centro Leaks did for the Switch 2 game key card. He says, Nintendo will sell a cheaper $330 Switch 2 in Japan that's region locked. It's confirmed. That means the multilingual Switch will cost more and only be available on Japan's My Nintendo store, which is their region. So if they want to buy the actual, you can bring it anywhere, you have to pay more. So Japan is getting a $330 Switch. That is a near that's actually $120 difference. That's a $120 difference between the region lock Switch and the non-region lock Switch. And it's Japan only. You can only buy it there. Now my question is this. Why don't they do that in any other country? Because I can honestly tell y'all, there's not many people who are playing Nintendo Switch games that are traveling to different countries playing their Switch. They are most likely going to play it inside their own country. So if this is being sold for $330 in Japan, why isn't a region lock of North America or Europe or South America being sold? Well, I can tell you exactly why. And this has been a practice for a lot of things that Japan makes, is basically Japan bias in the global market. And I don't blame them for doing this. You know, Nintendo's a Japanese company. I understand that. But it's pretty unfair to those of us who want to buy your products and want to play your products and are getting screwed over for it. And this is what I'm talking about. Nearly $120 less for them to pay for the console. So this is basically $30 more than your regular Switch, and you're getting a huge upgrade for it. Whereas we have to pay $450, if not for the best deal, $500 for the Switch. And here's another article from Video Games Chronicle talking about it. And I want to also bring attention to this. Nintendo released this information minutes after the Direct, and they didn't disclose any of this during the Direct. They didn't give any pricing details. They gave no info on how these game key cards worked. They gave no info. Like, for example, this is buried at the bottom of the Nintendo website, all the way down here. You get the MSRP star by the way. And yeah, I just I just don't know, man. Like even some of the accessories, like this camera is $50 and it's not very good. You know, these are actually more reasonable. They're about $20 a piece. But like the controller itself, the new Switch 2 Pro controller, $80. It's just absurd. I'm worried about this, and I'm gonna wrap up the video here soon, but I'm worried about this because this sets a expectation in the games industry that you can get away with pricing your games like this. You can get away with basically charging for more in your games and splitting your games up in different costs to basically charge more if people want to actually have physical ownership, which we already talked about how that's not technically physical ownership for some of the games. You're not even paying for the game, you're paying for a key to the game, and it's going to cause other game developers to follow suit. And I'm honestly, I'm with a lot of people on this. I'm surprised Nintendo was the first to break this one. Usually it's either Sony or Xbox that ends up breaking the mold on this and pushing it, usually Sony, that ends up breaking this and raising stuff more to either charge more for games or make it harder to access games, whatever it may be. And I'm surprised Nintendo honestly did this, and I can see why they didn't show any pricing in their direct, because that would have pissed people off. I guess they hoped that, you know, the larger population would just see the direct, see it, not ask what the price is, and then just go ahead and go consume the slop that they're given. But a lot of people, especially like someone like me who's really into video games, and I'm sure a lot of you watching who's into video games, it's upsetting. Because it feels like a stab in the back, and the problem is this stab in the back, it won't just heal. This is going to continue to get worse if Nintendo actually does go through with this, because then other video game companies are going to follow suit. They're going to do the exact same thing. So basically, game is going to become, if you're wealthy enough, you can afford to do it. So that's why I'm telling you right now, I see video game one piecing exploding soon. I see it exploding in rise of how many people do it because of practices like this, and if this actually goes through. I hope that's not the case. I hope the industry, you know, we could very well see the industry have a collapse, like the housing collapse in 2008. I mean, I can see the video game industry having a collapse because of this, because they're pushing too far with this. I hope and pray that that's not the case, but I guess we'll we'll have to see. But yeah, just a little, I'm sorry if this video came off as ranty. I'm sorry if this video came off as irritable or whatnot, but this is honestly very disgusting to see. And as someone who really wanted to get into Nintendo products, this did nothing but basically keep me away from it, because the bar of entry has been raised significantly for somebody who actually wants to get into the products. You know, Nintendo with the Switch was seen as the go-to product for getting into video games cheaply. You know, the rise of console prices has been insane. The rise of game prices has been insane. The rise of computer parts has been insane. You know, I have a gaming PC, but I haven't changed my graphics card in 6 years. 2 reasons. 1, it's too expensive. 2, I can't even get the cards that I want to get. So that already is a bad taste in my mouth. But for someone who wants to get into Nintendo products, this does nothing but deter me away from it even more, or seek other routes. So yeah, anyways, I just want to make this video. Make sure you like, subscribe, share the video. I should be uploading a normal, you know, gameplay video. Probably gonna do some either scary game compilations or whatnot in the future. Please comment below what your thoughts are. I'm honestly really want to hear what you guys think about this kind of thing, because it's honestly kind of disgusting. But anyways, until next time, you guys take care, stay safe out there, and God bless.